Hello, and welcome to another episode of Behind the Green Screen. As you can see, there's no green screen behind me. And you know what? On a quick note about that, I'm honestly thinking about going back to the green screen, trying to figure out that whole setup without it being such a hassle each time. So stand by for that. Okay, so it's been a minute, and I'm first, let me start off by saying this is episode 22. Yay! I think that's right. I think I'm at episode 22. And second, yeah, it's been a minute, but not like intentionally. With all that went on since my last episode, it's not like I was so devastated that I couldn't do a behind the green screen episode. Quite the opposite. I'm just, with all that has gone on, I feel as though I'm in what the 60s might have been like, you know, living through all that turmoil, you know, with JFK being assassinated somewhat at the beginning of that decade, and then the decade ending with MLK getting assassinated. I feel like all of that turmoil, all that craziness that was going on during the 60s, I think that's what felt like, what we're going through today, in which every day is a new adventure into something that's a complete head scratcher. And you just have to wonder, like, what is going on? For real, right? Okay. So, on that note, because of all the really incredible stuff that's been going on, I want this episode to be light. All right. Because, the last episode I was pretty dark. I said I didn't want to go there, but I felt like that stuff needed to be addressed with what I read and what I know. And, hopefully put other people on the path of that book, so they can read it and understand it a little bit better and realize that, what, like, it is so easy to tip the scales for real. So for this episode, I'm going to keep it light. And, I had this all in the queue, and I'm glad that I'm able to do it now because it's been one of those things that I enjoy. This episode is going to be about hobbies. Okay. And I have hobbies. I pick up hobbies, and sometimes I stick with them and sometimes I don't stick with them. But it's always good to just give it a try, see if it's something that you like, that you can, stay with on the long term. Now, if you've been paying attention to my episodes, you know that in the back here I had an easel, and I was trying to work with paint, see if I could do something like being a docent at the Smithsonian American Art Museum. I am exposed to what is called in the art world self-taught art or folk art, in which people who don't receive any type of formal training are able to be creative and express themselves either through paint or through other materials like ceramics or quilts or seed art, which is absolutely amazing. um, uh, Creating using materials that you find in the trash, and creating artwork from that. I'm exposed to stuff like that. And so it sort of inspired me to try it, right? I like palette painting. I have bought a painting from a former coworker of mine who was moving to another state, and she had a yard sale. And I saw this particular painting. It was a palette knife painting, and I sort of fell in love with it. And ever since then, I've sort of, wondered if I could do something like that. And that's why I had that easel, had a whole bunch of paints, had palette knives and whatnot. I haven't given up on that. Absolutely not. I will go back to it, but you know, the what I was doing before trying to create my own work is that I was using paint by numbers. And let me say this about that. I love paint by numbers because it forces you to focus and be very, very careful, especially with those little, small little, that often requires a dot of paint, and you have all these little tiny brushes. And it's a great way to relax and to get whatever is on your mind, just push it to the back temporarily as you try to focus on finding the right color for the right number. It's great. But I don't know if you can see, but I've kind of like done some rearranging of the room, and I've taken down the easel, the painter's easel, just to get that room back. And move some stuff around. And I don't even recognize this is my office slash guest room. And I don't even recognize it now that I've moved some stuff around. But I digress in any event. So, painting is one hobby. From a child, I had a babysitter. Her name was I called her Miss Jamont. She was married, but I called her Miss Jamont. And she taught me crochet. And when I got into my early 30s, I wanted to pick up the needle again, but I didn't want to crochet. So I think she kind of taught me knitting. I can't remember exactly, but I started picking up knitting. And so I was knitting for a while. And then there was another. And I still go back to knitting. As a matter of fact, it's morphed into embroidery. And from embroidery, now it's morphed into me sort of trying my hand at making quilts, because I have noticed, and I felt this, that people are going back to what they're calling analog hobbies, hobbies that require in real time, IRL, and forces you to work with your hands. And so I've seen a lot of people wanting to go back to analog hobbies. And so I'm one of those people where I wanted to go back to sewing. I learned how to sew and use a sewing machine in middle school. And I remember making my first pillow and embroidering it with my name. And I don't know what happened to the pillow. I have a feeling that it's gone. But I enjoyed that and I wanted to go back to that. But life gets in the way. And sometimes, like, you really don't think about stuff like that when you're trying to just make it from day to day and paycheck to paycheck, you know? But now that I work from home and, you know, I have this energy that I did not have before. And you guys know what I'm talking about. When you have to go into office and you have to work 5 days a week. Before the pandemic, it was 5 days a week. Let's not get it twisted. So, you know, and especially the job that I had was an hour's drive away from home. So that meant getting up really early in the morning. And when I get home, the last thing I want to do is hobby. And I know, and hobby is the one thing that you should be doing to sort of unwind and relax, but I just didn't have the energy for it. And so now I have that energy and I'm sort of revisiting old hobbies. Sewing is one. I've discovered Timu. And the fabric that I come across, I cannot turn away from. And it allows me to play with color in a way that I've never played with color before, trying to find that nice um, transition and good match of colors that make it so breathtaking. Quilts can be breathtaking. And yeah, so this hobby, I've never really walked away from the hobby. Like, I do the hobby now more than I did before, and that's because the equipment has changed. And that hobby, I'll start with this book. Now, this book that I'm about to show you, it's not something that I'm like, go out and get it. It's a book that I got in the clearance section at Barnes and Noble, and I held on to it as a sort of reference book for this hobby. But you can find any book about this hobby that will help you. So this is it. Now you can tell how dated this is, right? Using your camera, a basic guide to 35 millimeter photography. Notice that there is a film cartridge in there. This is how dated this book is, which is why I'm telling you, like, don't run out and getting it. But I will say this, film still exists. Film you can still find for purchase, and you can still have it developed. So I won't say, just get a book about photography. Get something about film photography, and you'll understand what I mean by that when I'm going to do a show and tell today, other than showing the book. So photography is a hobby that I picked up in my 30s, along with re-picking up knitting. And my uncle, I remember my uncle was into photography. He is a Vietnam veteran, and he was stationed in Germany for a while. During Vietnam, he didn't go into combat. He was sort of fortunate, and they sent him to Germany. So he was there in Germany, and he sort of, I think he picked up the habit, not the habits, or beg your pardon, picked up the hobby there, and he could buy camera on the cheap in Germany. Germany at the time had really good cameras. I don't know if they're like the leaders in cameras now. It might be Japan, but back then, German cameras were very, like, the Hasselblad, very good cameras. And so he picked up a couple of cameras there, and he picked up photography, and I think he even learned how to develop his own film. And I would see some of his prints, and it was always like at the back of my head, it's something that I would like to explore. So when I was in my 30s, I started to explore film photography. I remember buying my first Minolta XG1 from a pawn shop in Glastonbury, Connecticut. Let me put this book down. And I started buying film. I would buy cheap film, of course, because um, I didn't have a lot of money back then. And this thing is drifting again. I don't know why it's drifting. Oh, this is annoying. Why is it drifting? Why is it drifting? Hold on one second. Okay, we're back. We're back. We're back. I don't know what that was, but in any event. So back then I had very little money, so I would buy the cheapest film that I could afford. And I would just try to understand the f-stops, exposure, film speed, depth of field, all of these science aspect of photography, understanding how light and shadow play against each other, and how film speed and aperture setting play a role in what your output will look like. And what was really neat back then, and it's not so now. Oh, well, excuse me, I'm saying that wrong. What was neat back then is that you did not know whether you were successful until the film was developed. That was it. So there was like this waiting. You couldn't wait. You would take it to the automat or the photomat, the photomats, beg your pardon. I would take it to the photomat, and you would get it, developed. And then you would see how well you did or whether you captured everything. And that's why back then you always took 2 or 3 pictures, because the more pictures you took, the better chance you had of one of them being the shot that you had envisioned in your mind, or a shot that was pretty good. And but now you don't have to do that anymore. Well, yeah, you don't, because you automatically see how well you did, and you can go back and take it again. But back then it was sort of like this waiting game. So I really wish that I had my Minolta XG1, because I did have it, and in moving and moving again, I'm not sure what I did with it. I might have chucked the camera, which is really weird for me to do now that I think about it. And I'm wondering if I, either that or is up in Connecticut in one of my storage boxes. I'm going to, you know, revisit that because I really would like my XG1. I'm not sure how functional it will be though, because I hung it from a doorknob in my old house. So don't judge me. So yeah, so I started on my Minolta XG1, and I also took I used bought slides film and took pictures, and they would come out on slides in like Technicolor, in amazing Technicolor. And so I just practice, and I understood, you know, film speed versus aperture setting versus f-stop, and stopping up and stopping down, to get the best picture. That's why you always took 3 photos if you had a single lens reflex, or SLR, which is, I don't know if this is supposed to be an SLR. It looks more digital. No, it might be an SLR. Let me see if I can find a picture of one for all of you young folks who really don't understand um, a single lens reflex. Oh, yeah, here we go. So here in this book, you can see this is what a single lens reflex camera was or is. They're still out there circulating. They're probably dirt cheap. So if you wanted to really learn like the science of it and what that all entails, I honestly recommend going analog and not digital, and getting a single lens reflex camera that requires film. You can still get film if you go on, just do a search, and there are stores out there that still sell film. And so I practiced on the single lens reflex, and I would take pictures of my kids. As a matter of fact, I don't know if you can see it, but let me go get it. Hold on one sec. Okay, so this picture right here, this is a picture of my sons when they were small. They're adults now. But I practiced a lot with my single lens reflex camera. And I was always trying to get them to stop so that I could take a picture of them. And this is one of my favorite pictures of them when they actually got along. They fight like cats and dogs sometimes now that they're adults. But when they were kids, they kind of got along. And this is one of my favorite pictures that I took of them. I have another one, and it's around here somewhere. I used to also explore the town that we were living in at the time that I was practicing photography, which was Colchester in Connecticut. And I would say, "Come on, guys, let's get in the car." And we would bounce around Colchester because there were beautiful spots in Colchester that were just zen. That's all I can call them. They were zen. And so, me being a single mom, there were certain things that I tried to do that were supposed to be manly, and one of them was fishing. So I remember this one shot that I got of them. I forget what pond. We were at a pond where you could fish, and they had like these makeshift fishing poles that was basically a stick with some twine, wrapped for the fishing line. And we used like a twig that had a prong setting, and I think we put like, I forgot what we put on there for bait. And so they were, fishing with these, primitive fishing poles. And I have one shot of them. They must have been telling each other a joke or something was happening, and I was watching them, and you can see one of them. My son has his head thrown back in laughter, and my younger son is turning to him and sort of saying something, and it was the most spontaneous um, picture that I got of them. And it's I have it blown up. It's around here somewhere, and I'll share it. But it was one of those pictures like, you're glad you got it when you did, because it's just a beautiful moment in time, and catching a moment of joy, right? And it's documented. That joy was documented. And no matter how much they argue and fuss and fight, like there were times when they really were, brothers, like siblings, and they had fun and they laughed and they made each other, they did silly stuff, and they hung out together, So I keep those as a sort of manipulation tool. But so yeah, I would take pictures of my kids. I would take pictures of waterfalls. And again, the reason why you would take three pictures with a film, with the film camera, is that you would take one at the setting that you think it should be, and then you would stop up one and then stop down one, and you would see how exposure plays a role in whether your subject is washed out or it's popping and it's the way you want it to be. So, but again, now you don't have to do that anymore. But that was part of the art and science of photography, when you were using a film camera. So, so I'm I'm practicing on my Minolta, my single lens reflex. And then slowly, what enters the market are these digital cameras. And you have your point and shoots. Now, mind you, I wish I had all like my progression of cameras that I bought, because some I held on to, and others I'm like, there's no way that I'm going to be using this, and this is junk anyway, and I threw it away. And I wish I hadn't. I really wish I hadn't, because I would go on eBay, because eBay was the joint back then. Okay, in the all the 90s, when eBay first hit, it was the joint, and that was the place where you can find people who are just getting rid of stuff, and you can either auction, and auction was exciting also. So a lot of the cameras that I would buy, they were used, and I would get them off eBay, and I would get them for really good prices, because I was really good at I had locked down how to do those auctions. And it was exciting back then. I had this, I was taught the strategy by someone. And once I had the strategy down, it was like heart pumping action when an auction was about to like wind down, and it was into the seconds, and ugh. But in any event, so I started progressing, and I started to acknowledge the fact that it would be interesting to have a digital, but I was still holding on and using my film camera. So I'm trying to, yes, okay, all right, yeah, now I remember. Okay, so I'm going to go through my show and tell. All right. And so the digital camera craze is slowly creeping up. However, the digital cameras are extremely expensive. So it's really like the professionals that are like either renting or buying the digital cameras. So I am buying like small points and shoots. Um, I'm trying to remember. Yeah, well, I'm going to start with this. So going into the year 2000, I wanted to get some freelance work as a writer. And so the only freelance writing gig that I could get was, there's this in Connecticut, and I don't even know if it's still published anymore, but there was this small newspaper, and it was called the Reminder News. And they had one published for each town. And so they would hire freelancers like me and send us out on small assignments on nice, touchy feely kind of activities that were going on in the town that you covered. My town was East Hartford at the time. So I would get to go to go-kart derbies, or I would get to go to events where people would receive rewards for their role in the community, and stuff like that. Those types of newspapers that are probably all digital now, because back then they would throw them on your doorstep. And I know, because my younger son, I used to help him deliver those little newspapers, the Reminder News. So I got a job as freelancing for them as a writer, and I was pretty active. They would send out, you know, uh, events, and you would say, "Yeah, I'll cover that one." So I was covering a lot of events. So doing that at the time, at the digital now digital cameras beyond the point and shoots, they're becoming a little bit more affordable, so that we have the DSLRs, or the digital single lens reflex cameras. So this was an upgrade. As a matter of fact, this is not the original one that I got. This was an upgrade from the first one that I got. And that was, really, that was what slowed me down from really continuing, because this is practically, now I won't say it's obsolete, it still works, but when we look at the pixel quality compared to what it is now, this is sort of behind the times. So this was the digital single lens. I'm a Canon person. I don't know why, but I just am. So this was my second digital single lens reflex. I remember, because the first one I had was smaller, and I wanted to upgrade because I wanted a bigger back screen. So this was it. I have a whole bunch of lenses. Where's the lens? So this is the lens that it comes with. This is the 55 millimeter, and it's the range. This is a telescoping lens, and it's 18 to 55 millimeter. And so this naturally goes with this, and you would screw this off. And the reason why it's a single lens reflex is because of what's going on inside the case housing, is what makes it a single lens reflex. There is such a camera as a double lens reflex, but those were like, I'm trying to remember because it's been a minute. Those were kind of expensive, and they were sort of being phased out. They really weren't. It was the double lens reflexes were really for the people who were really like hardcore and into photography, and they liked the output of what the single lens reflex did for their photography. But more than most people got the single lens reflex, and I can't even, that's right, there's no battery in this thing. I took the battery out. You should always take the batteries out of any kind of electronics if you're not going to use them for a long period of time, because batteries do rot. And if they rot inside the housing or the casing where your battery is, you've pretty much destroyed that equipment. So this is it. And so you would put this on here and click, and you would align. I have to take this off, but you would align the dot right here. See the dot, and you would align it with this. And you turn, click, and I just show you. I'm so lazy sometimes. Okay, so I'm going to align here. See the white dot? I'm going to align it on here. I'm going to turn till you hear the click, and then it's ready for shooting. And what was great about this is that it came with a flash, but it also came with what's called a hot shoe. And I do have a flash that you can put in a hot shoe. I think it's in the bag there. So that was what was great about this, is that if you didn't have a hot shoe flash, you had the flash built into it. But people who were really looking for a better output or quality, 9 times out of 10, they would use a hot shoe flash with a diffuser on the flash itself. So they would have like a soft light. Okay. Oh, my bad. So yeah, so here I am. I'm using, let me pop this off here. So I'm, using the digital, and then what happens? The iPhone comes out. iPhone, I think, sort of put the final nail in the coffin for film photography. But blessedly, there are people that still believe that film photography does have merit, and it's great as an art, to be used in your art. And so you can still, kind of find that. But so I get into college and I'm taking classes and I have to do an elective. And naturally, I'm going to do an elective that was pretty groovy, in which I took two electives now that I think about it. Did I take two electives? Or was it just the one? Ah, no, I think I did take two electives. So one was film photography, in which we actually went into a dark room and we processed our own film in the dark room. And I enjoyed that class so much. And that's when I started using slide film for that class, my first time using slide film. Now, back then, slide film was well, not very expensive, but it was pricey. So if you got slide film, you had better not waste it, okay? Because it was expensive to buy and expensive to process. I think I have some slides. Hold on one second. I do, as a matter of fact. Yeah, so here are my slides. Okay, this is once upon a time. I know for you young folks, you know, and I know it's very difficult to see what's on here, but slide film, the only best way to describe it is like it's vivid, like it's in Technicolor. And when you got it back from the processors, from the photomat, this is how it would come back to you on a slide. And so you would look at it. I have a reader somewhere, a slide reader, and you would put it in the reader and you'd be able to see it. And you could also get prints off of this, and the prints would be very sort of vivid in color and crisp, just very, very crisp. And that's what was so appealing about slide film. So, and I don't know if you can see some of these. Yeah, it's very difficult to see. So I was just like a nut in this class, just taking pictures of everything. And I think this was my textbook for the class. Okay. Notice that it's photography, but you can see that this is what the old, quote unquote old digital single lens reflex cameras look like as they started to progress. Now see how small that screen is compared to the screen on my camera. That's why I wanted a bigger screen, and that's why I got an upgrade. Ooh, hold one second. Okay. So this book, I'm not going to say run out and get it, but again, it's one of those books where it explains the science of photography, about the distance of you from the subject, the distance of how the light bounces off the subject and into your camera, explains all of the science behind that. And it's really cool. Like, I'm not just saying that because I like photography, like the science of it is pretty cool. And I remember as a kid, I don't know if they still do this at schools anymore, to sort of highlight, the science of photography. But when I was in elementary school, we did pinhole cameras. You guys remember that? Where you were told to bring a box or whatever, and you'd poke up a pin in the camera, and you'd put a mirror or something like that, and you could basically use that pinhole camera and actually take photos with the pinhole. I don't know if they do that in schools anymore. I wish they would, because that was really neat back then, and, now that I'm thinking about it, no, they probably don't teach pinhole cameras anymore, which is kind of sad. That's why sometimes, like, not all things need to be phased out. I'm just saying, not all things need to be phased out. Okay. So where was I? Okay, so I'm in college. I'm taking classes. As a matter of fact, I did take two electives. One was photography, in which I went into the dark room and processed film. And then I did a digital photography course as well. I remember that. Okay. So um I'm freelancing, I'm taking pictures and da 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 da. And then I can't remember exactly when I stopped doing that. It must have been 2007, 2008. I think I stopped freelancing. And then the equipment sort of got shoved into the back of the closet, blasey, blasey, blasey. You know how that goes. And so the year is 2010, 2010. And Lisa is working a semester at the U.S. Coast Guard Academy in New London, Connecticut. I was an adjunct for a semester. And I got to do something there that sort of made up for something that didn't happen when I was in high school. And that is that I got to go to a military ball. Now, the military ball made up for the fact that I had a crappy prom night. I won't even get into it. I won't spill the tea. Don't ask me. But it was a really just a crappy prom night. And so when I got to go to this military ball, it made up for it because I got lammed up. All right, so I'm going to share this picture or pictures. I'm going to share two pictures of me glammed up. And these pictures were taken with this camera. Again, it's a Canon. I'm just wedded to the brand. And I got this simple point and shoot because I didn't want to bring this, because bringing this to a ball made absolutely no sense whatsoever. So instead, I said, I'm going to go and get a simple point and shoot because I want to document this experience. And so here's these two pictures. And yeah, Lisa was hot. Lisa was hot. So, and you know what was great about being there and um, going to the ball is that women don't often get a opportunity to dress up and do the whole hair and makeup. And I mean, I went full glam on that. Like that whole day, you would think I was going to a wedding or I was being part of a wedding. I got up early in the morning, went and got my hair done at 8 o'clock in the morning. I asked my hairdresser. He did my hair. And then after that, I went and got my nails done. And then after that, I went to the mall. And I don't know if they do this anymore, but at the time, I would buy from Sephora. No, back it up. Not Sephora. I was buying from the MAC counter at Macy's because I was big into MAC cosmetics. And so then, back then, if you bought $50 worth of products, their makeup artists will do your makeup for free. So that's what I did. I bought $50 worth of products and they did my face. So I didn't do that face in that picture. That was done by a MAC makeup artist. And so I was trying to be as light as possible. I even had like a little silk purse that I could just slip on my wrist. And then I had this inside the purse. And so those pictures were taken with this point and shoot. Not too bad, right? It's the perfect camera, you know. So I still have this. I don't use it all that often, and I should go back to using it. But you know, the point and shoots. There's little um there's no there's not a lot of thought required. It's basically like it takes all the guesswork out of everything for you, depending on the settings on the top. So whatever you were trying to do, you know, here you see portraiture, you know, all of that kind of stuff. if you wanted to. Yeah, and I think even with this one, you could take, yeah, you could take video. I remember that. But you see all of the settings here. So it basically takes the guesswork out of everything. And it was perfect for that moment, but I haven't used it since. And I need to go back to that. So there's that. So I have that, but I stopped using it. Why did I stop using it? Y'all know why. I shouldn't have to show this, but I'm going to, right? The iPhone. The iPhone came along. I had been resisting it. Oh, look at that. See? That's the rest of, yeah, there. Yeah, I have a standing desk. So yeah, so I my brother was deep into Apple before I was. And he kept saying, sis, you got to get this, you got to get the iPhone, you got to get the iPhone. And I had resisted it. And he got it from the very first one that came out, the first iPhone. He got it. I didn't come in until iPhone 3. And once I did come in with iPhone 3, I never looked back. Since the moment I got that phone, all my photography has been with the iPhone. And I don't use this, and I don't use this. And, so now these two are in the camera graveyard because it's been replaced by the iPhone. I'm not saying that that's a bad thing, because the iPhone camera is pretty awesome. And it's one of those things where you can really get a snapshot of the moment right then and there. All you got to do is just break out the camera. But the bad part of it, and what I've been seeing, is that they see something like, there's this, say that someone is getting arrested or getting stabbed, instead of doing something, they instead take out their phone and they start recording. And you sit there and wait a minute, that person is dying, or wait a minute, that person is getting beat up, or wait a minute, something's wrong is going on here. And your first instinct is to pop out your iPhone. So that's the downside of it. Like, people are just, they sort of forget their humanity because they want to be the first to capture it. And let's be honest, post it. Okay. So I'm with the iPhone now. I barely use any kind of actual camera. But there was one film camera that I'd always been chasing. And it was expensive then, and it's the camera brand is expensive as hell. But there are cheaper brands out of Japan that basically offer the same thing. Now, the one film camera that I always wanted, the minute I heard about it, was the medium format camera. And let me just show it, okay? Because I did buy it. I bought it used, of course, on eBay. And this monster, this is the Mamiya. This is a medium format camera. Medium format because the film is bigger, right? And this is a different monster. It works differently from a single lens reflex. And this is the remote. You use this to click the shutter. All right. So this monster, it's heavy as hell. I have you need a tripod for this monster. You do. It's a beast. And you basically look down through here and through here, and then you the film. Here's the cartridge in the back that holds the film. Let me see if I can detach it. Yeah. So this is what you put your film in. Um, it. Oh, this is awesome. Okay, I'm sorry. I'm getting. So you put your film in here. Let me see if I can open the back of this. Oh my gosh, I forgot how to open the back of this. But in any event, so you put the you put the film in here, and I do have film. I have color and black and white, and I'm going to warn you that bitch is expensive. Both of them. Um, I think there were 4 rolls in the box. I have them in the refrigerator. 4 rolls, and it was like 50 or $60. And there are places that still process them. So, so I bought this camera, and again, like I said, I saw it and I was like, I have to have it. I It's one of those wish list things, you know what I mean? Like I always wanted to have one of these, and whether I will use it or not remains to be seen, but I just have to have it. What am I doing? You know what? I'm not going to fuss with this right now on camera. But in any event, so yeah, so this is what I finally got for myself. It's and I do have the film. Now the thing is that this beast, I don't know how old it is, and I know that the shutter works, but I've never worked on a medium format camera before, and I don't want to waste film. So I want to make sure that I understand how to use this beast and use it correctly before I put the film in and I start taking pictures. But yeah, so this is a dream come true for me to finally have a medium format camera. All right, so um, so that's primarily it for this episode. It's pretty short, eh? Let's see, how did I do? Mm. But yeah, so find a hobby. If it's not photography, that's okay. You know, it doesn't have to be photography, but find something that is analog that allows you to put your hands in and work with it a little bit. Because even with photography, it's analog. It does require some thought into it, and you can take your camera and you can go out into the woods and explore nature photography, or you can go to busy sections of your city and people watch and just take pictures the way they used to do back then of New York, taking pictures of people, documenting. I guess if I were to give you a charge and say pick up photography, it's to document your life. Um, Document history, document what's going on right now, you know, be a guerrilla photographer and go out there and just explore, and you'd be surprised at what you can capture sometimes when you think about it and when you really are not thinking about it at all. Okay. So that's it for today's Behind the Green Screen. I do not have any particular book, but I am recommending a hobby, and you can find books for that hobby really cheap. I do recommend that you get a film camera. I was going to reach for the film camera, but I don't have one. I do recommend that you get a physical camera. So even if it's a used digital single lens reflex camera, even if it's that, right? That's cool. That's great, right? Because then you have the physical act of. Now, I'm going to say this about that. Digital single lens reflex cameras, as you can see, have all these presets to sort of take the guesswork out of your photography. But I challenge you to go on manual and actually work with your aperture and speed, on these digital single lens reflex cameras so that you get a sense of the science behind it. I do recommend that. And by all means, go to a pawn shop. I don't even know if pawn shops have film cameras, but it's worth a shot. Go find a pawn shop or go on eBay. For reals, for real. And you will find film cameras dirt cheap. Like I said, film is still for sale. So go out and explore and learn how amazing photography is, because it really is a great subject. Excuse me, a great hobby and a great subject to discuss the science of it. So that's it for today's episode. I hope I didn't bum you out. Of course, I didn't bum you out. This was about encouraging you to follow Ikigai. And if you don't know what I mean by that, remember, you need to dip back to the episode 5, Ikigai. Yes, please. I think that's episode 5. But and I'll put it as part of, something to watch for this episode so that you can see. But yeah, practice Ikigai. Find a hobby. All right. And you know what? Ikigai is not opposed to turning that hobby into a side hustle. All right. Okay, then. So I'm going to let you go. But before I let you go, let's do our mantra. Okay. Let's leave everything outside. Whatever craziness is going on out there has nothing to do with what's going on in here. You dig? So let's do this. All is well. Everything is working for my highest good. Out of this experience, only good will come. I am safe. Namaste. Have a great evening, day, whenever you are watching this, all right? And we'll talk soon. Bye.